Good afternoon, class. Today I am going to tell you about spectroscopy. This is a very important topic in chemistry because this is the branch by which we can justify our study, our synthesis, our preparations. Because chemistry always deals with the synthesis of molecule, designing of new molecules, and whenever we got these molecules we need to justify that we have completed the molecule in a very specific way, and those molecules will be recognized exactly by the help of spectroscopy. I am Dr. Nisha Saxena. Now we are here to know about more in spectroscopy. For knowing this topic, we must get the introduction of the topic. We must know what is electromagnetic radiations, various terms used in this spectroscopy, the types of spectroscopy. Then we will discuss about the absorption spectroscopy and various possible spectroscopic techniques which comes under this technique. Next will be UV visible spectroscopy and its application. So in this lecture we will cover some of these topics, and for that we must know what is spectroscopy exactly is. Actually, spectroscopy is the study of interaction between electromagnetic radiation and matter. Matter means anything which we are studying, like molecules, atoms or ions. Molecules may be of carbon compounds or other element compounds. So whenever these molecules interact with electromagnetic radiations, they create some effect, and those effect can be readable or in the form of data, such as spectroscopic data we can obtain, and those data can be interpreted, and that's why we came to know how molecules looks like, how the atoms in a molecule are arranged, or in an ion how atoms are arranged. Or if it is the spectroscopy of single element, so by the data we can conclude that this particular unknown atom is of particular element. So spectroscopy is actually a technique and a kind of study which deals with the interaction of electromagnetic radiation with the matter. The matter can be atoms, molecules or ions. Next is spectrometer. Spectrometer is the instrument which is required to get the spectroscopic technique done. Okay, so spectrometer is something which can be used to measure the presence of particular compound or particle in a molecule. That is, structure of a molecule can be readable or recognizable by the help of an instrument called spectrometer. And whatever the data that spectrometer generates is known as spectrum. Just like a cardiogram we received in our cardiology lab while we perform cardiology test, some peaks are appeared on the screen, that is known as cardiogram, which indicates how our heart is working. Similarly, spectrum is a plot of the amount of light absorbed by a sample versus the wavelength of the light. So this is the kind of data which we obtained on the paper or computer or laptop screen, which help us to understand the structure of the molecule by getting the data interpreted. And how we interpreted the data? We usually use a certain kind of electromagnetic radiation in spectrometer while performing our experiment along with a sample, that which structure is need to be known, and that particular compound or a sample absorbed a part of that radiation, and the resulting radiation which we obtained after the absorption is in the form of certain peaks or a diagram or a graph which is known as spectrum, and that spectrum can be readable. The amount of light absorbed is the called absorbance of that particular substance, compound or sample. So here we reached at the point where we know what is spectroscopy, it's a technique. What is a spectrometer? It is an instrument required to get the spectrum. And what is spectrum? Spectrum is the data by which we can deduce or we can elucidate or we can get the structure of our molecule which is unknown to us. So in whole, these particular three terms, spectroscopy, spectrometer and spectrum, are very important. But you have seen there that there we are performing the experiment by the help of electromagnetic radiation. So the most important part of spectroscopy is to know electromagnetic radiations. Electromagnetic radiation is a form of energy that is all around us. That means the light which we receive from sun is electromagnetic in radiation, and we can also generate a particular type of electromagnetic radiations by certain instruments or device, just like X-rays we generate, just like gamma rays we can generate infrared radiations at our laboratory, we can generate ultraviolet radiation in our laboratory by using certain wavelength of bulb. Okay, so electromagnetic radiation is a form of energy which is present all around us. Electromagnetic radiation is a energy that is associated with both electrical and magnetic components. That means if we call it electromagnetic radiation, it consists two terms, electro and magnetic. So the name itself implies that electromagnetic means when radiation is associated with electrical as well as magnetic component. Means that radiation have some electrical behavior and magnetic behavior in it. Electricity and magnetism were once thought to be separate forces. But when James Clerk Maxwell developed a unified theory of electromagnetism, the study of electromagnetism deal with how electrically charged particles interact with each other and with a magnetic field. That means whenever there is an electric field, there must be some sort of magnetic field. So whenever there is a magnetic field, there must be a generation of electricity around that magnetic field. So these two particular components always associated with each other and lies perpendicular to each other. In this diagram, you can see if magnetic field moves in this direction, up and down, then there must be electric field component which will be lying just perpendicular to this. If it is on the x direction, the magnetic field, if it is in the x direction, then electric field will be in the y direction. So these are the two fields which always accompanies each other in case of electromagnetic radiation. The electric and magnetic field in electromagnetic wave accelerate along directions perpendicular to the propagation direction of the wave. So up to this point, you are knowing what is electromagnetic radiation and how it propagates. It always propagates along with magnetic and electric field. We know that electromagnetic radiations which we receive from sun has dual character. That means particle as well as wave character, and it propagates from sun towards the earth. So in the same manner, magnetic as well as electric field moves towards us in the same direction but in the perpendicular to the each other fashion. So here comes few terms when we are dealing with the waves. Waves always possess frequency, waves always possess wavelength, and they have some kind of amplitude associated with it. Then what is frequency? Number of waves produced each second at a particular point is called frequency. If we just thread the rope, we observe there is a vibrations in the rope, and those vibration when passes from the particular place and the number of vibration passes through that particular point is called frequency. Okay, and the wavelength, if wave exists in this form, up and down, that means crease and troughs, there must be a highest point and there must be a lowest point. Similarly, a complete up and down have a particular maximum distance with each other, and this is what we call as wavelength. It is represented by lambda measured in meter, centimeter, and what is the unit of distance. Similarly, frequency will be measured in hertz. Now what is amplitude? Amplitude is nothing, it is the maximum distance a wave extends beyond its middle position. Here in this figure you can see what is amplitude. If there is a middle point in this wave, there will be a distance from middle point to upwards or middle point to the lowerwards of this wave, and this is what we called as amplitude. Thank you students. Here up to this point you must be knowing what is spectroscopy, what is spectrometer, what is spectrum, and here up to this point you must be knowing what is your wave, electromagnetic radiation. Okay.